Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you another movie review. This time we're going to be talking about Van Helsing, which was released back in 2004 and stars Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale. I just rewatched this movie again last night with my girlfriend, and I just felt the urge to talk about it because, honestly, Van Helsing is one of my personal favorite movies of all time. I know some people are going to be, shocked and appalled by that and stuff, but it honestly is. I just think this movie is a really, really good time, in all honesty. I know some people just bash the hell out of this. It's a CGI fest, or it's so poorly acted. It just really bugs the hell out of me. How movies like this can get so much hate, and then the latest comedy that we've seen 20 million times over, gets a higher rating on Rotten Tomatoes or something. But really, this movie was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. I still kind of look like a kid, but I'm 20 years old at this point, so technically I'm an adult now. But I was 8 years old or so when this movie came out, and it really was one of my favorites in my childhood. I was always a fan of monsters. I was always a fan of just that whole scare factor. I'm fixing my hair right now for some reason. That is weird. Anyway, so when I remember seeing the previews for this movie, I seen the promos on, the TV promos and stuff like that. Just seeing all these monsters coming together, Dracula, the vampire thing, and then werewolves, and Frankenstein. It just really, really got me excited when I was younger, and it still would to this day if it came out now. Because you guys know how much I love, vampire shows and movies, and werewolves as well and stuff like that. All supernatural based stuff. And this is just really fun. People would say, "Oh, so it's kind of like your guilty pleasure type of movie, right?" Here's how I am with guilty pleasure movies. I don't consider anything guilty pleasure if I like it. Because I just think if you like something, you shouldn't have to feel guilty about it. You like it, you enjoy it, great. You don't have to feel bad or anything. You don't have to hide how much you like it, or not talk about it because you feel embarrassed or something. If you like it, embrace the hell out of it. Talk about it all the time as much as you want. And this is one of those for me. It's something I can genuinely say I like. I haven't talked about exactly what are my favorite movies of all time too much. I know I brought up The Punisher with Thomas Jane as one of them, and this is another one. And yeah, so this movie means a lot to me, and I remember watching the opening scene last night, with the whole Mr. Hyde thing, as well as the sort of black and white opening sequence with Dr. Frankenstein and Dracula and such. I just felt such a rush of nostalgia as well. I'll admit that's probably part of it. Just hearing the music again, the doon doon. It's epic. It just really made me feel like it was a few years ago again. So it really brings me back in a way. The story in this movie, it's actually good. I think it has an interesting take on bringing some of these creatures together, I think. Of course, Kate Beckinsale being cast in this movie, she, of course, this is off the heels of, I think this is after the first two Underworld movies came out. I think this was a year or so after Underworld Evolution. I could be wrong about that, but obviously they've seen her in Underworld, so yeah, she'd fit in this one, and she does. It's in a way essentially Celine teaming up with Van Helsing, right? Except Anna, her character in this, isn't a vampire, but still, I can see where the I can see where the casting directors or whatever, they went after her, because of seeing her in Underworld and such. It's not naturally a perfect fit. And Hugh Jackman, he looks like he has a lot of fun in this movie. I think he did a fine job acting wise. you know, we'll talk about the rest of the acting in a few minutes, but I'll just explain to you the story real quick. So Van Helsing, you know, he sort of has this reputation, you know, he's thought of as a murderer, you know, because as we see in like one of the first scenes, you know, he hunts down Mr. Hyde and he's able to kill him, but then he reverts back to a human, people see it, and then, you know, they don't really see past that, apparently. They don't really see what he actually did. We find out he's part of this, you know, order, apparently for, you know, quite a few years and such. You know, he had like crawled onto their steps when he was younger, or something like that. I don't know. I do wish they would have expanded on the Van Helsing backstory in this, because they do sort of go into a little bit how he may be like the left hand of God, Gabriel. How he may have actually been around for hundreds of years potentially, which is interesting. I wonder, there was going to be a sequel to this movie at one point. I wonder if they would have went into that a little bit more, but we found out he's part of this order, and you know, he sort of like questions himself. You know, he does think of himself as a murderer, but at the same time he tries to carry himself in a certain way. He does have a belief in himself and stuff like that, and he's essentially sent after Dracula. You know, he is sent to the far reaches of Romania, and he finds out about this family. The family name is Valerius, and they briefly go into, you know, how their family's been trying to kill Dracula for, you know, generations. At this point, there's only 2 of them left, and that is, you know, Velkin, the son, and then there's Anna, you know, Kate Beckinsale's character. And, you know, so it's brought up that he has to sort of help them vanquish Dracula before all the family is gone, or otherwise generations will, you know, be put into the ground for nothing, basically. And that's essentially the movie, you know. That's the setup for it all. I really did like the introduction to Kate Beckinsale's character, too. We see her and her brother trying to capture a werewolf, or capture and kill a werewolf, I should say. And, of course, it gets all screwed up, and she ends up being chased down by a werewolf before she's able to get a hold of the gun with the silver bullets in it. Her brother is, you know, willingly bait in this scenario, but, of course, it screws up, and none of the other hunters decide to bring silver bullets, I guess. And her brother ends up pushing her out of the way, and he shoots the werewolf, but he is tackled off a cliff and, you know, presumed dead. Yeah, so that part was cool, you know, and it, you know, how is this movie? You know, it is, like I said, it is campy. I don't think I really said that before, but going along with what some people say about it, yeah, it is campy. Parts of it is, you know, parts of it come, I can't talk. Parts of it come across a bit cheesy, but, you know, I think they kind of knew what they were going for with this one, you know. Because it is a PG-13 rating, you know, it's not rated R. So I feel like they decided to market it, you know, with the PG-13 thing, of course, to reach a more wide general audience, you know, because kids would see this, you know, like me, and really want to see it. They think it looks so cool. But if it was rated R, you know, fewer of them could. You know, of course, unless they snuck in or whatever they're going to do. And, you know, there are toys released to this as well, you know, little figures with little gimmicks and such. I had a couple of them when I was younger. I actually had a Dracula one, I had a Frankenstein, and a regular Van Helsing, and I think I had a Velkin. It was really weird. You had, like, the rubber werewolf skin that you'd, like, put the Velkin figure into and sort of, like, make them stay inside it. It's kind of weird, but cool. I also have a book of the movie Van Helsing that my girlfriend actually got for me, which is really cool. I actually also owned a VHS copy of the movie. I'd need to buy it on Blu-ray, though. Seriously, I'm ordering that very, very soon. But, you know, like I said, they're marketing it as PG-13, you know, so in a way I think they probably did try to make it more fun and a little bit lighter for kids in certain areas. Although I do think there are some moments where it is a little bit intense, you know. There are jump scares in this, and some of them actually work once in a while, you know, especially in the earlier part of the movie, I guess. My girlfriend jumped a couple times, but I guess she's not the best example because she is kind of easily scared. But, you know, there is a good tone to it as well. You know, it has this, like, gothic sort of feel to it. And yeah, the action's really over the top, and so is the acting. The only one who's not really too overboard is Hugh Jackman, and that's pretty much it. The rest of it you can feel is a little bit overboard acting style wise, and I feel like they knew that too, because the guy playing Dracula in this movie, sorry about the voice crack there, Richard Roxburgh, I feel like he's sort of like he played as sort of like a modern day Bela Lugosi in a way. Of course, we look back at the Bela Lugosi movie in the 30s, and it seems really just really over the top now and cheesy, but really they had a different acting style back then. It was very theatrical and almost like he was in a play and stuff like that. So the acting style that's generally around now has changed, and I feel like Richard Roxburgh here sort of tried to be a sort of a new Bela Lugosi in a way. And once you think of it that way, instead of thinking of him as like a bad version of Dracula, just think of him like that, and I think you could actually enjoy his performance. He's very, as my girlfriend said, flamboyant. He's very cocky. He likes to taunt by, dancing around with himself. But I think he was a good, over-the-top, sort of really traditional version of classic Dracula. I think he worked. I actually liked him. Excuse me. Like I said, Hugh Jackman does a fine job. He's a very good actor. It looks like he had a fun time in the role, so, why the hell not? He's cool. Then you had, like, David Wenham as Carl. He's a friar of the Holy Order, part of the group Van Helsing's with. And he's sort of like your comic relief, sort of like your, sort of like your buddy to Van Helsing. And he does a fine job. David Wenham's been in some more serious films. He's been in things like the 300 films. He's been Lord of the Rings, Australia, things like that. Also, Pirates of the Caribbean, the upcoming movie he's going to be in, apparently. So yeah, he also worked well. I think he was entertaining. His back and forth with Van Helsing could be fun. And then you have the Brides of Dracula. They're really over the top too. They're very emotional and very sensitive to when Dracula talks to them, which is kind of funny. What's also kind of nice is one of the Brides of Dracula, I think it was Verona, played by Sylvia Kalka. Her and Richard Roxburgh, who played Dracula, actually ended up falling in love for real, and they got married and they have kids now. So there really is some offspring of this Dracula out there now, so awesome. I think that's cool. And then he had, let's see, he had Igor in this, who's just like basically the second, little villain in this movie, evil henchman, I guess. He's alright. Then he had Charlotte Hensley as Frankenstein's monster. And, I like this version of Frankenstein. After seeing Penny Dreadful, no version's going to compare to Rory Kinnear's performance on there, but this version of Frankenstein's monster is a little more of the stereotype of what a lot of people think of Frankenstein's monster as. He's very bulky. He's more of a brute, sort of like a Hulk type of monster. As is Mr. Hyde in this, but that's different. He is that stereotype, but once in a while you hear a line that sort of gives you a look into his more serious psyche of loneliness and just wanting to find a place, to be himself. And, that's not touched on too much, and again, he's really over the top of his performance, but I feel like Frankenstein's monster is an enjoyable character in this movie. Not the best version, but, fine in comparison to a lot of others. And Kate Beckinsale, she has to do a little bit more of an over-the-top accent in this, but she's fine. She's a kick-ass, female heroine, and she works well in this, just the same way she does in Underworld. Although, of course, I do enjoy her as Celine much more in Underworld, but this is a decent role for her as well. Not her best work for sure, but she was definitely a fitting choice for this, like I said. And so another thing about this is they're looking for the cure to kill Dracula. No one really knows. Kate Beckinsale, Anne talks about how her family tried staking him, shooting him, fire, electrocuting, things like that. I don't know about electrocuting actually, but they've tried all these various ways, holy water, nothing's worked. And what's eventually revealed as what can kill Dracula is actually kind of interesting, and it makes for actually a pretty awesome finale to it all. Excuse me. Okay, sorry. And another little backstory with Dracula and Van Helsing. Like I said, it's sort of touched on that Van Helsing may actually be the left hand of God who's been around for hundreds of years, and you find out that apparently Van Helsing was supposedly the one that actually originally murdered Dracula, and sort of driven him into that deal with the devil and such. And he even has a ring that once belonged to Dracula apparently. And I would have liked to have seen that dynamic explored a little bit more. I would have liked to have seen maybe a flashback or something. I don't know. But again, it was more of an action type of thing, so I understand that they didn't want to delve too deep into that, but they didn't want to bore the kids or anything like that. But I thought that was interesting as an okay version of the start of Van Helsing and such. And so a lot of it is them trying to figure out how to kill Dracula, and it actually gets a little bit more interesting with that. And you find out that Dracula's trying to create life. He's trying to create these babies, and you have like a castle full of these egg sacs. Apparently, are just from one birth from one of the brides. My girlfriend was like, "Oh, he's been so busy," but then apparently this all came just from him having sex with one of them. And then he had like another castle full of them later on. So yeah, he's been having a good time. Even though he's not very satisfied, apparently, he gets what he needs. And these babies, of course, it's CGI. There's a lot of CGI in this movie, and most of the CGI effects are okay. They're definitely not great compared to some of the stuff nowadays, but I feel like they are decent, especially for the time it came out. Most of the CGI around 2004 and before wasn't really much better than this, so I feel like it was okay for its time. And I did like the designs for the werewolves in this movie, honestly, too. It's not quite that happy medium between wolf and man. It's not my favorite look for a werewolf in a movie is still probably the Wolfman, the 2010 remake. It's not so much Wolfman, it's a little bit closer to Wolf, but it's not so far to the point where it's like Twilight and just like a big wolf that doesn't look like anything else at all. I feel like it's pretty close to that medium between wolf and man, with just a little bit further on the wolf side of it. And I think they actually look pretty cool. The werewolf we see at the start of it going after a Velkin and stuff, he looked cool, with the white and gray sort of mixed in. And then Velkin, I think, actually had the creepiest and scariest looking werewolf design in the movie. Just very the brown fur and such, just the way the water would make his fur sort of, I don't know, it's weird to describe, but so I did like the werewolf designs in this movie as well, and the CGI was okay for it. And the final werewolf in the movie we'll talk about later. But basically they end up finding out that Frankenstein's monster is actually the key to keeping these offspring of Dracula's alive. They've tried it before. They've tried it with Velkin. They always end up dying eventually. They had tried it before with, unfortunately, the Valerius, his father, and Velkin's father. That didn't work. But Frankenstein's monster is the key because he's created by the doctor, but he was killed in the opening part of the movie, sort of like the classic Frankenstein story. So once Van Helsing and Anna find Frankenstein, they try and guard him and protect him. And, essentially he actually does sort of find a place with these people, Frankenstein's monster does. He ends up deciding he wants to live, and he actually does help him out a little bit. And also, I want to go back and talk about Mr. Hyde real quick. He's just like a big CGI brute in this, but, he's kind of fun. He was kind of creepy and stuff like that, so I thought he was kind of a fun opening. Anyway, not Kurt, I don't know why I said Kurt, but Carl, David Wenham's character, I should say, he ends up discovering that the only thing that can kill Dracula is actually a werewolf. And, of course, that, makes for, a fun vampire versus werewolf battle again. Anyway, and sort of questions, why would werewolves kill him? Dracula's, used them as like his foot soldiers, for centuries. But, it's essentially apparently Dracula playing it close to his chest, making it appear like, he's not really bothered by him. Because it'd be riskier for Dracula to let werewolves be out there and him not using them than it would be for Dracula to, like, take one of them in human form and, like, make them work for him, Because if there's some in the wild, he could be like, attacked at any point. So it kind of makes sense that he tried to bring him in closer to him. And also, no one else knew that werewolves could kill Dracula. And so Dracula would think that, no one knows, so I can basically use the fear, and no one will actually try to make a move on me who's a werewolf anyway. Especially in their human form, they'll be too afraid, and they won't really believe it would work anyway. But if anyone ever had the will, he also had this cure created. And that ends up coming to play later when Van Helsing is actually bitten by Velkin in werewolf form after he is able to kill him. And so this leads to a pretty fun final fight between Van Helsing and Dracula. Van Helsing going into werewolf form. He's a little bit bigger than the other ones. Maybe because he's essentially the Hound of God, right? Maybe. That's a little reference to Penny Dreadful, but and the Van Helsing werewolf design, he's a little bit bigger, darker fur. I thought he looked pretty cool. He, of course, more muscular and built. And the final battle was fun. It's a lot of Dracula trying to fly away, and Van Helsing essentially jumping around and just slamming him into things over and over. The first part of it was kind of funny because you see Dracula start to fly off, and he sort of has a smug, I'm getting away, and then he gets pulled back down. I also liked, before we talk about the ending too, I also did like the fight with the brides in the village when Van Helsing first showed up and met Anna. And, they fly around and you see them, picking off quite a few of the villagers. Van Helsing using the crossbow, which is cool. And, he's able to kill one of them, and then the other bride is killed later on when they set a trap for one of them when they're going after Frankenstein on this, on the horses and such. It explodes, it shoots a bunch of stakes out. And then the final vampire bride is killed by Anna. She's just really, really smug and cocky, and she just takes too long taunting everyone, and she just gets staked by Anna. And that's another thing about it being PG-13. When the vampires die, they sort of explode into this like green goo type of thing. Except Dracula, he just sort of decays. But the babies explode into this green goo, and I don't know. I'm getting mixed up here because one of them did actually sort of decay like Dracula, so it's a little bit back and forth. But I think if it was rated R, they probably would have had more blood involved with them actually dying. But PG-13, so they can't go too far. And that's one thing that would have made me like this movie even more than I already do. Is if it was rated R, there would have just been tons of blood. That would have made it even more awesome. But the action is still really exciting. There's definitely plenty of it. And definitely has a very fast pace to it, so I don't really think there's too much to complain about. And then eventually, of course, when Van Helsing fights Dracula in werewolf form, Dracula tries to make a deal with him, saying we could be friends, partners, things like that. But of course, Van Helsing in werewolf form ends up biting and finally killing Dracula, and Anna is able to show up with the cure. But of course, Van Helsing can't fully control himself in werewolf form, and he unfortunately kills Anna, but she's able to inject him with the cure as it happens. And Carl comes in, he tries to, stake Van Helsing with the silver, and Van Helsing stops him and shows him that the cure got into him, but Anna is unfortunately dead. And so it sort of ends with, Anna's funeral, or her being cremated. In view of the sea. She had said she'd never seen the sea. It was beautiful, so it's fitting for Van Helsing to put her out there. And then you also see that Frankenstein's monster had escaped as well. He had survived, sort of rowing away on this raft. And he did find sort of like a sense of peace as well, with Anna actually thanking him when he had helped her with one of the brides earlier on. So I did like that. And then, of course, Van Helsing sees Anna. He sees the sky opening up, supposedly heaven, essentially, and he sees that she's reunited with her family, which is nice. And then him and Carl ride off into the sunset. So yeah, I can't believe I just went through the whole story, pretty much. But yeah, I just think it's a lot of fun. You know, the action, there's plenty of it. You know, the actors have fun in the role. It is over the top, but you sort of got to accept that. And I think they knew what they were going for with some of the campiness of it. But I definitely think it deserves a lot more credit than it gets. You know, it's not terrible. Come on, it's a really fun movie. It's one of my favorites growing up, and it's still one of my favorite movies to this day. This thing has really a lot of cool things in it that you can enjoy, and yeah. So let me know what you guys thought about this movie. You know, I think it's definitely overlooked. I think it's definitely underrated in a way it shouldn't be. And yeah, so I'll catch you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.